Hello guys, today I'm going to do a BFDI character ranking. I'm going to go over every BFDI character from worst to best and tell you why I like them or don't like them. This list will be including every single contestant who's competed in every season, including BFDIE, and it's also going to count every singular host, meaning that groups of hosts such as Bugs, LOL or WTF will not be included. Okay, let's start now. First off, I have the dislike/hate category. These are all the characters that I do not like in the show. In last place, I have Pillow. Pillow is the reason I do not like Pillow is because Pillow is always been a very annoying character in my opinion. She tends to steal the screen time from other characters and is just annoying in return. I was really glad when she got eliminated. Next up is the Flower Speaker Box. She barely appears throughout the entire series. I only included her because she's technically a host and appears in most BFDI character rankings. She's just very annoying in general and also is always biased towards Flower, which Fiery Speaker Box does too, but to a lesser degree. In 87th place I have Rocky. Rocky just never does anything throughout the show, often making his own team lose, and never even speaking, making it quite hard to enjoy his presence. He even got eliminated twice in a row for doing nothing. In 86th place is Grassy. Grassy is similar to Rocky, but he does do more than Rocky, so I'll give him that. Though the annoying thing is that he always survives in the show over actually interesting and good characters, meaning there's less and less room for other characters, making it more and more annoying with every elimination he survives, and he's usually the first one safe too. In 85th place I have Toothpaste, the first BFDIE character. Toothpaste is just very annoying for me, and her joke was never funny in my opinion. She has a few times where she's made me laugh, but other than that she's just unwatchable in my opinion. In 84th place I have Evil Leafy. Evil Leafy is quite a unique character, being one of the only villains. Well, Evil Leafy just isn't very interesting, never doing anything throughout the show other than staring menacingly, but not actually doing anything that menacing. She's quite good in the last couple episodes, but that's not really enough to be any higher than this. In 83rd place I have Fanny. This is probably one of the most controversial takes in the entire ranking. The reason I do not like Fanny is because she claims to not like Death Pact and be different from them, but she just does the same things that everyone else did in Death Pact. And she's also a hypocrite, which is ironic considering that's the thing she stood against in BFB. She kicked Lightning out of the forest just like everyone else and wanted her to be gone. She threw challenges just as much as everyone else on her team too, but suddenly acted like she was the one in the right after she was in a little bit of danger. That is all the characters in BFDI I dislike. Now we're moving on to the characters I feel neutral about, meaning overall they're just neutral in my opinion, meaning usually they don't do anything. First off is TV, who doesn't tend to do much. He doesn't really work as a contestant in my opinion, and is better off as a host. No matter what they do, he just can't be interesting. And he always goes on about no respect for mechanical minds, but maybe people would have more respect for mechanical minds if they ever did anything. Speaking of mechanical minds, next up we have Roboty. I do like Roboty more than TV because he's been quite funny in recent episodes, but Due to how his character works, it's quite hard to put him any higher on the tier list. Character ranking. In 80th place, I have Robot Flubber. Robot Flubber is basically the same as TV, but slightly better since Robot Flubber acts more like a real character. Even if her thing with flowers was interesting at first, but quickly became annoying. In 79th place, I have Hot Dog, and I can guarantee they aren't a single hot dog fan in the entire universe because he literally doesn't do anything. He's probably the most forgettable character in the entirety of all of BFDI. Probably being even more forgettable than Flubber Speaker Box. Although I sound quite aggressive there, I don't actually hate him in any way. He just kind of does nothing all the time, and there's nothing to like or dislike about him. In 78th place, I have Foldy. Now, if a while ago I would have put Foldy lower than that, but since in Teapot she's developing more of a character, and there is a chance she might even rejoin, I'm starting to like her more, especially since she's starting to develop a personality instead of just being Stapy's friend. In 77th place, I have Pie. Pie is slightly similar to Hot Dog, but Pie can be funny quite a lot and also is more memorable. Pie's cool character is that she does nothing, meaning I can't put her any higher in this, but sometimes just doing nothing can be pretty funny, unless you're like Grassy or something. Next up is David. David is also yet another character who does nothing. That most of these characters who do nothing are all gripped up in the neutral category just because I don't have any reason to like or dislike them. David just says all seriously, and he is pretty funny in BFDIE, but outside of that, he's literally just a piece of paper that does nothing. In 75th place, I have Nelly. Nelly, I don't really know how to feel about Nelly. She gets replaced by Price Tag quite early on in Teapot, and in BFB, in BFB 12, she was definitely in the wrong against Fiery Jr., but maybe she starts doing more in Teapot, I'll like her a bit more, but for now I can't put her any higher. In 74th place, I have 8 Ball. 8 Ball is 8 Ball is a pretty generic character, basically just saying that he doesn't have a favourite number. We're still waiting for him to do something in Teapot. Though I will admit that in BFB he's pretty interesting with the leader thing, even if he doesn't do anything other than be slightly annoying with that. In 73rd place, I have Cloudy. Cloudy is okay in pre-split, but when it comes to Teapot, he's kind of just there. And in Teapot 22, he's a little bit annoying, but he never does anything outside of his friendship with Balloony, which gets stripped away from him during the split. Next up is Belle. Belle is kind of not doing anything in Teapot right now, needing to share the spotlight with like 4 other characters, but as her entire run as a whole, she's never really done anything, with her string being her defining personality trait, and we've still not found out about that like 7 years later. So I cannot put her very high, though I will admit that she is quite funny sometimes. Just outside of the top 70, I have Saw. Saw's a pretty good character in most of pre-split, but the eight gag becomes really annoying in Teapot, which is why she gets eliminated, even if by 8 votes. Now, I thought that after her elimination she would stop doing the 8 thing, but she just keeps doing it, unfortunately, even if she doesn't do it as much. In Teapot 23, they teased something about Saw being able to stop doing the 8 gag, but hopefully she does. Also, I should probably note that this video was recorded before Teapot 24, so anything that happens in that will not be considered into this ranking. Next up is Balloony, who's dead for half of Pre-Split and is non-existent for all of Post-Split, meaning I don't really have much to go off of, but when he does appear in Pre-Split, he's okay with for me his most memorable thing being his goofy voice. And he also hosts in BFDIA, but that seems a bit out of character for me. Next up is Dora, and Dora seems to be a lot more popular than David, unless we're talking about BFDIE, where David's the most popular thing on earth. But Dora isn't really that good in my opinion, since she kind of just stands there, even if less than David. I do think that she's a pretty interesting character if something was done with her, but we're kind of still waiting for her to do something important. Next up is Fern. Considering Fern literally won the only season she was in, you'd think that she would be higher, but for me, Fern kind of just doesn't do enough to deserve being a winner. And I think out of the finalists, Sticker would have been the most deserving one. In 67th place, I have Cake. Cake was literally the most nothing thing ever up until Teapot 22, where they decided to try and do something for her. I know a lot of these rankings seem to be based off the last few Teapot episodes, but that's only really for the neutral category, since a lot of these characters do nothing all the time. That is the end of the neutral tier now, because now we've moved on to decent characters, which are characters I do slightly like, but they're far from my favourite in the series, but they are still pretty enjoyable. First up is 4. 4 is a very inconsistent personality. Considering in canon, he says he needs to protect X by locking 1 up, and then kills him repeatedly in BFB. In 65th place, I have Loser. Loser's pretty good in the current Teapot episodes, but before that he was just a little bit annoying, with the show kind of forcing you to like him, and although he's slightly likable in the start of BFB, he kind of just gets annoying by the time Post-Split comes around. Then there's Blocky, another Post-Split character. Blocky was probably best in season 1. After that he became a bit of a weird character, with him and BFB kind of staying the same but mostly avoiding the spotlight, and then in Post-Split he just becomes a completely different personality. Next up is the third Post-Split character in a row, Woody. Woody's a bit of a weird character, since his thing in the end of BFDIA is very out of character in my opinion. But I do kind of like him in BFDIA, I don't really know why, but in BFB pre-split he's pretty good, and then in post-split he kind of just falls apart for me. Next up is Yellowface. Yellowface is a pretty good character up until like Teapot Dark Age ends, because after that he just starts being really annoying and stealing limbs. And even in BFDIA they keep that same energy up, with his defining personality trait at that time being racist, which definitely isn't great. So it's no wonder he was close to being eliminated in both seasons, even if they turn it around in Teapot to make him last just a little bit longer. Next up is Clock. Clock is a pretty boring character, with his own team forgetting his existence for a whole year straight, which he was so boring that even I forgot about his existence up until when he got recovered. But in Teapot he's pretty good in the few episodes he gets to himself, but still not much, but it's still enough for him to not be considered neutral. Next up is an announcer. Believe it or not, announcer used to be one of my favourite characters, which was a bit confusing to be honest, because announcer's a pretty generic character. That doesn't mean he has a lot of funny moments, it's just there's a lot of characters who I prefer over him nowadays. Nickel's probably the most inconsistent character in the entire show, going from trying to replace Coiny to being pessimistic, to being really goofy, to being a little bit goofy, to being really goofy again, to then being a pretty aggressive character towards Pillow. So I don't really know where to put this guy, so I just put him slightly near the bottom half of the list. Next up is Purple Face, and I'm probably one of the only people who think Purple Face is better than Yellow Face, and that's most likely because his only real season for a long time was Post Split, which is the season where everyone hates everything about everything. But I think Purple Face can be a pretty entertaining character from time to time, even if being a little annoying sometimes. But you also have to feel bad for him. He spent like 10 years straight in a box, and then he came out, and then he just got stuck on the exit, not even too long after. Next up is Bommy. Bommy's also a pretty inconsistent character, becoming a lot more energetic in BFDIA, which is most likely for the best because he was kind of doing nothing and just shouting gibberish up until then. So I do find them pretty enjoyable, especially in BFDIE 9. Next up is Ruler. Ruler is a pretty repetitive character, just talking about henchmen most of the time. So I think it definitely made sense for him to go the millisecond jam he went. Maybe it would have even made sense to eliminate them both in the same episode. After that we have Sticker. Sticker is a pretty good character in my opinion, even though he's kind of the cheater. If you watch the episodes, you can see that Fern probably cheats just as much as him, maybe even more. I think he deserves the one with him having the best outcome in terms of who goes to Nightmare Island. I think that was what it was called. Next up is Puffball Speaker Box. Puffball Speaker Box is quite an interesting character to me, starting off being pretty chill and nice and then becoming pretty aggressive after being stabbed by Pin, which is pretty valid to be fair. Although she doesn't appear for that long, she's probably close to being my favourite Speaker Box, only just slightly being beaten out by Fiery Speaker Box, who I put just one spot above her, mainly because he's definitely the most chill out of all the Speaker Boxes, and he's probably one of the most fair. Well, that's not really true considering he's biased against Fiery in that one episode, but other than that, he's usually pretty fair. Next up I have Profile. I know Profile isn't really a contestant, but I still decided to include them, since I also included Evil Leafy in one, despite them not being hosts or contestants. Profile is a pretty interesting concept, even if it doesn't really make sense that he's meant to actually be in all the other seasons. Which makes me wonder would he claim to be in BFDIE? He probably doesn't even know it exists, so he can't lie about it. Just outside of the top 50 I have Beach Ball. Now Beach Ball is a pretty entertaining character, and it's kind of sad that Beach Ball got out so early. I would have liked to see a bit more of Beach Ball and their friendship with Sticker, but they didn't last that long, though they still had the potential to be a really good character. But even without that, they're still decently good. In 55 Lie, and this is a really controversial take, but I actually didn't mind Lie getting out in Teapot 23. To be honest, I always thought she was a bit of a boring character, and I think that Bracelety would have been a better pick to join. Well, I probably would still keep Pencil as one of the views, considering how much you've done with Pencil. Which makes me realise they literally rigged the vote for Pencil to join. Do you think if Bracelet came second, do you think they still would have made two characters debut, or would they even make it three? In 49th place I have Jamie. Jamie's kind of like Fern, but with a lot more character to her. I When the season first came out, I would compare her to Eggy, mainly due to the voice, but considering how much of a character change Eggy's had recently, I wouldn't compare the two to each other anymore. Fiery Junior is a really unique character, being one of the only characters that is like his personality. Fiery Junior. It's nice to see more of Fiery Junior since he's a pretty funny character to watch, and he's a nice breath of fresh air from all the more generic characters. Next up, I have Taco. Now, Taco's one of the most prominent characters in pre-split, but gets done dirty in post-split, losing 90% of her IQ points. That thing with Spongy was so stupid. Well, it is pretty cool that she only lost to the winner of the season by a singular vote. Now we move on to the characters that I consider pretty good, meaning that I do enjoy their presence, I just wouldn't call them my favourites. So so first up in this category is Stapy. I know he never really had his time to shine since his first appearance was in BFB and he gets eliminated early, which is really unfortunate because I think they could have done a lot with his character. Probably more than they ever could have done with Foldy. So it's unfortunate that they showed him cheating and then putting him up for elimination, but he's definitely past that now. Anyways, after that I have the Fish Monster, who usually doesn't get to appear in most BFDI character rankings, but I feel like if we're counting Flubber Speaker Box as one, we have to include him. I think he's a pretty interesting host that definitely would be nice to see again in the recent episodes, as soon as the world stops ending. Next up is Rose. I think Rose is quite a cool character to watch, since she's not really like most of the other characters in BFDI, as the way her personality is. It's sad we never got to see more character development because it almost seems like she got derailed in episode 4, but I feel like that's not really the right word. Next up I have Pen. Pen is quite fitting that 10's just about in the middle of the list because he is one of the most generic characters ever. Though it was cool when they did a bit with his character in Teapot 16, though I would be pretty disappointed if he ended up winning Teapot like a lot of people predict. Next up is Snowball. In season 1, Snowball's pretty much like a better version of Flubber, and in BFB he doesn't do much, but in Teapot he has his friendship with Grassy, which I wasn't really happy about, and it ended up causing his elimination, but I still think he's pretty nice to watch in the show. Next up I have Tennis Ball. Now Tennis Ball is pretty entertaining to watch in the first two seasons, and in Teapot he kind of just gets chased around by a horse the whole time. So it's quite crazy he's survived 3 eliminations in a row now. Wait, three. It was three, right? Yeah, three eliminations in a row. He probably won't last much longer, but I don't think the writers can get away with putting him up for a fourth time in a row, unless he's a new book or something. Next up, I have Bottle. Now, I know putting a silly character this high up seems a bit weird, but I actually think silly characters are a very important thing to put in BFDI, especially in Teapot when everything's so serious. That's exactly that's exactly why I think Marker should still be in Teapot, but I'll get to that later. In 39th place, I have Price Tag. Now, Price Tag's quite an interesting character, but one thing one thing about them has kind of confused me a little bit. In recent episodes, she always talks about being no, they always talk about being the newbie and saying that they always just feel like the new one, unable to connect with everyone, which I feel like is kind of a bit silly considering they've been with the rest of the cast for over 4 years by this point. If that's not enough time to become friends with some people, then how much time will they need? Also, by the way, I know that I mostly complained about price tag and that, but that's just because that's been bugging me. Price tag themselves is a pretty interesting character, and we're still waiting to see more of them. Next up is Sidewalkie. Sidewalkie is kind of like Snowball, but I actually think he's better as Snowball because a character like Sidewalkie is pretty funny, and I also like his voice, which I know I've not brought up characters' voices for any other person, but I feel like his voice especially is done really well. Next up is Donut. Now, although Donut is a pretty good character, considering he's in the pretty good category, I just think that sometimes he comes off as a little bit bland, and the complete 180 character shift in BFDIA has always been a bit weird. But although I do enjoy seeing him, like like Penn, I would be a bit disappointed if he ended up winning the entire season. Next up is Lightning. Lightning was definitely robbed in Teapot, not appearing for enough time. I easily would have took Fanny being eliminated over Lightning. That was just really disappointing. But I don't really have anything else to say, to be honest. Lightning's kind of just lightning. Anyways, next up is Eggy. Eggy's Eggy's quickly dropping from my list, considering Eggy felt almost like a real person in Teapot, having to deal with all the responsibilities, but now she just seems like a big complainer. But I feel like the last couple episodes just haven't been putting her in a good light, so I'm sure she'll be able to come back in later episodes. Next up is Marker, and now I can go back to what I was saying during Bottles, but I actually think that having silly characters is a good thing in Teapot. I know people think it's a waste of a character slot, especially this close to the end, but I would much rather see Marker's antics than lie moaning the whole time. Though this only applies to characters that are actually interesting to watch. So characters like Grassy are not should not be in the final 11 in my opinion, or even the final 20. Anyways, now we have X. X is just a really goofy character, and it's really fun to watch that, especially since it's a host, so you don't have the whole argument of, oh, they're taking up slots in the cast. And we've not really got to see much of X in Teapot 23, but hopefully Teapot 24 will do more for him. In 32nd place, I have Needy. Needy's one of my favourite BFDIE contestants because it's just a really unique thing to see of a character trying to do as little as possible to win challenges. And the change of heart is kind of cool to see, and I think that she left at a good time just before the end of the show, but not quite winning. Well, realistically, I would have preferred her as a winner to Fern. Anyways, in 31st place we have 31 from Number Blocks. Now 31 from... No, okay, I'm joking. In 31st place we have Barf Bag. Well, the thing is that I don't really know who Barf Bag is. Like, I guess I have a script of what my opinion on Barf Bag would be if Barf Bag was in this show. And my opinion is that it's a very interesting character and pre-split to watch, and kind of like Eggy in early Teapot, feels like a real character, but then in the Teapot Dark Age gets slandered to death and then just gets eliminated. Oh, sorry. In 30th place I have Flivver. Flivver is probably one of the most developed characters in the whole series, alongside Leafy. Flivver starts off as being a very mean character and getting out first, then coming back and not learning her lesson and getting out just before the finale. And then in BFDI, she's probably my favourite there, as she does a good middle ground. In pre-split I also like her, but in post-split they kind of just ruin her. Not really like ruin her, but they kind of just change her character completely, and it's nowhere near as gradual as they do it in BFDI or pre-split, or I guess also IDFB will fill in the gaps if she ever gets recovered. Oh yeah, and also I forgot to mention this, but Flivver is the first character that on this list that I would consider great and not pretty good. And I know great doesn't sound that much better than pretty good, but I was kind of running out of things to name these categories. Anyways, next up is Spongy. I know Spongy doesn't really do too much, but I think that Spongy's a pretty cool character and definitely gets way too disrespected in the show as a whole. But maybe he'll get to do something at some point. What's he doing in Teapot 23 right now? I don't think he's doing anything, to be honest. Anyways, here's another character that doesn't exist. Why do I have so many? Why do I have another one of these? Anyways, Gatey's pretty good in... Apparently, Gatey's pretty good in pre-split, and then in Teapot she's not as interesting, but is still pretty good, and probably wasn't the worst on her team when she got out, being better than Robot Flubber. Sorry, I had to think there for a moment. In 27th place, I have Match. Match is kind of like a worse pencil, but still a pretty entertaining character. And it'd be nice to see her develop on her own at some point, which we've really never got to see. We've got to see plenty of Pencil developing without Match, but we've never seen Match develop without Pencil. 26th place I have Leafy. Probably the second closest to being the mascot of BFDI. Only being beaten by someone who'll be in the list very soon. Leafy appears in BFDI as just a nice character who wants the best for everyone, though always respects something in return, being her main character flaw. At the end of BFDI, she gets completely disrespected by Fiery, meaning that she buys Dream Island and then everyone hates her. Okay. And then after that, she eventually develops into a character that people want to see again, but I think that the complete 180 that right before elimination in BFB was just really rubbish in my opinion, and they definitely could have went without that. Anyway, speaking of Fiery, he's definitely the mascot of BFDI. Though despite that, I only have him in 25th place. The reason for that is that Fiery kind of is a pretty generic character sometimes, and other times he's just really like he's in the wrong, because he was definitely in the wrong when he did the thing to Leafy, which was sad because Leafy ends up being the one paying all of the consequences for it. And no one even brings it up after that. Anyways, here's another BFDI veteran. This is like the 5th one in a row, and it's Pin. Now, Pin is probably the second most inconsistent character throughout the whole show behind Nichols, since although they kind of make the story connect, she goes from mean to kind to mean to kind to really kind to kind of kind and slightly mean, and it's just a bit confusing. She was justified in BFDIA to become mean after all that happened to her, but that doesn't mean that she's the best character, even if she is a pretty good one. Next up is Lollipop. Lollipop doesn't appear too much throughout the BFDI series, but she is still a really entertaining character when she does appear. It's quite a breath of fresh air to see a character who's mixed between having morals and being a slightly mean character. Since usually you're one or the other. You're either just really mean or you're just really nice. So it's nice to see a character in between. In 22nd place, I have put Gelatin. Gelatin, and it seems that I put characters who are related to each other close together quite a lot, doesn't it? But yeah, Gelatin is just a really goofy character, which is fun to see. He's quite boring in post-split, but in most of the other times we see him, he's just really funny. And I think he definitely could have went further in BFDIA, but he does kind of get screwed over in that episode. He even gets beaten out by golf ball. He doesn't do anything in that episode. Anyways, next up I have Needle, who just barely didn't win BFDIA. Her arc in BFDIA is really good in my opinion, with her developing to want to win by herself, but then finding a middle ground near the end of the season, which is that would have been nice for another character that is later in this list, but I'll get to that later. And also, her Don't Call Me Needy thing is kind of a cool callback whenever they do it now, but it wasn't great when it was her defining personality trait. Now we can move on to the fantastic tier, which are one of my favourites in the whole show, and I really enjoy when they appear in camera. First up, I have Teardrop. Teardrop is one of the only silent characters in the show done right, or characters that can't speak proper English. Teardrop is okay in the first 2 seasons, but Carrie and Michael didn't really know how to handle a character that can't talk, so they just didn't do anything ever. So that's why Teardrop is really good in Pre-Split and Teapot mainly, especially in Teapot when she can shine all by herself. And just after Teardrop I have Eraser, who's always just been a really chill guy, which is quite a fun character to watch. That's all I have to say. And then after that I have Winner, and you'll probably notice that the text colour I use for Winner's name doesn't really match the colour of Winner, but oh well. Winner is a really interesting character, and definitely the better of the 2 Teapot debuts, which is why it was so sad to see them get out in Teapot 23, but hopefully that doesn't mean it's the end of their story. I wonder if BFDI will continue after Teapot. Next up I have Bracelet. Bracelet is a character with so much potential in my opinion. It kills me so much that she's never actually interacted with Ice Cube, but maybe one day. I think she was absolutely robbed in the Teapot 13 debut, where she just barely didn't make it, which is so sad because I think she had way more potential than Y. Well, I guess Y did have a lot of potential, but they didn't really do enough for me. In 16th place, I have Fries. Fries is good in most of BFDIA, and he's especially good just before his elimination in Teapot. I think he definitely got out too early, and TV definitely could have got out instead of him, but I can't change the past now. The only time I didn't like Fries was near the end of BFDIA, where he would just say whatever instead of doing any stuff that involves being a character, which is just really boring to watch. So I'm glad that they cut that out after BFDIA ended. First character in the top 15 is Pencil. Now, Pencil is one of the most developed characters in the show, maybe even more so than Leafy. Pencil Pencil starts as BFDI as just a simple character who's friends with Match and Bubble. And then by Teapot she develops into being a broken, depressed character who's gone in time. And and in Teapot 23 the back in time thing seems really interesting, which is cool, but it's sad that it only got one scene to itself, so I hope they expand on it more in Teapot 24. After that I have one. One was originally higher on the list than this, but Teapot 23 made me put her lower just because they nerfed her, which is a bit unfortunate, but she's still this high up because a BFDI villain is nearly unseen. The only other time we've seen something like that is Evil Leafy. And Evil Leafy was a pretty bad example of a villain, so it's just really cool to see a villain, and they're not a contestant, so don't need to worry about eliminating them and then just forgetting it ever happened. Next up I have Coiny. Coiny's basically just this high because of BFDIA. He's such an entertaining character there, and I think he deserved to win the season, even if he's not the highest BFDIA character on this list. Seriously, I can't believe he survived over Needle. No, sorry, I can't believe he didn't survive over Needle. Like, Needle's a good character and all that. I would have preferred Coiny in the final three way more. Next up is Remote, and I know Remote doesn't really do too much in the actual show itself, but she has so much potential. She just didn't get out to bloomin' Fanny. So, what was I gonna say? Oh yeah, so Remote is a very interesting character, and I think she deserves to rejoin Teapot more than everyone else, was a popular opinion a long time ago, but now when there's like 30 odd characters out, that's not really a popular opinion anymore. But yeah, I think she would have done Fanny's role way better. But oh well. Just outside of the top 10 I have Tree. I know people say that Tree doesn't do anything, which I guess is true slightly, but like I've said for other characters, Tree kind of just feels like the straight person, like a real person, which is quite nice to see in a show with wacky characters, even if though I do think that he got eliminated in the right time. First person in the top 10 I have two. Two is definitely the best host in the entire show. Two Two's energetic personality is great for a host, and I was really starting to miss seeing normal Two at after Teapot 15, but he seems to be back now, which is really good. Oh crap. Anyways, in ninth place I have yet another character who doesn't exist, so definitely weird, but apparently basketball's one of the main characters in Teapot and was very good up until taking away from the spotlight for a single episode and then getting screwed over, which was very sad to watch. And also so even though they didn't do anything in BFB, their Teapot run alone was enough to put them this high. In eighth place I have Book, the winner of BFDIA. Book is probably one of the most prominent characters in the entire show, despite not even being in season 1. Book's talkhole thing was pretty bad, but it's been so long since that I'm willing to move on from that and focus on the stuff that is good about her. like her BFDIA and Teapot run. Though, to be fair, Teapot run she's kind of been doing nothing, and I probably wouldn't be too sad to see her go in Teapot soon. In 7th place I have Bubble. Bubble is a really entertaining character to watch, and her accent has always been a funny. It's sad that Bubble's kind of taking the sidelines ever since the BFB split. But I hope we'll get to see Bubble interacting with Pencil, and Bubble is so strong now that not even one can kill her. Okay, now we move on to the final category. These are my absolute favourite characters in the entire show. The first one is Black Hole. Black Hole is a really popular character, and I can see why. He's very ominous, and I wouldn't mind him winning Teapot. I really hope we get to see what they're trying to do with him in current Teapot, considering he's been stuck in one's lair for like 4 episodes now. Anyways, people will probably be confused by this placement, but the first person in the top 5 is Money. Money is definitely my favourite BFDIE contestant. It's not very often you get to see a really nice character turn into a mean one. What I wish happened was that kind of like Needle's arc in BFDIA, that she started off really nice, then she decided to become mean, and then after that finding a middle ground, but that never ended up happening. But that doesn't mean Money is one of my favourite characters, and she definitely did not deserve what happened to her at the end of the series. And I found it absolutely crazy when I saw people saying that Money deserved what happened deserved to be locked up in Nightmare Island, but Sidewalkie didn't, which is just a ridiculous statement because Money only became mean when people wouldn't be nice to her, and Sidewalkie was just mean for the sake of it. In 4th place, I have Puffball. Puffball is probably one of the most popular characters in BFDI, with her winning the prize 3 whole times in BFDIA. No, it was only twice actually. It's not that many, but still, Puffball should have went further in Teapot, and I think it's absolutely devastating that TV of all characters survived over her. But hopefully in Teapot she gets to do more, though I personally don't think that Teapot should have a rejoin, considering we're so close to the end now. Because if, say, a rejoin happened in Teapot 25, the results wouldn't come in until Teapot 26, where there'd only be 9 characters left, which is only 3 eliminations till the final, so that's why I don't think there should be a rejoin. Wait, this has nothing to do with Puffball. Oh well. Now we're on to the podium. In 3rd place, I have Ruby. Ruby is another silly character, but probably the best out of all the silly characters, due to just being really funny, and she definitely should have gone further in BFDIA. In 2nd place, I have Golf Ball. I think Golf Ball deserves to win Teapot, though she's not the only person I think deserves to win Teapot. I do think that she's one of my top candidates for winning this season. She's probably one of the most consistent characters throughout the whole series, and along with that, she's always just really funny. So I'm glad she's still in Teapot, and I hope that she can at least make it to the final 5. Anyways, now I've said my opinion on 88 out of the 89 characters in BFDI, meaning there's just one left who I like more than every other character in the whole series. This character isn't actually that popular, and I'm probably one of the only ones who has it as their favourite character. And that character is Ice Cube. The reason Ice Cube is my favourite character in the entire show is because Ice Cube's just a really interesting character to me. She starts off all quiet and nice, but then if you try to wrong her, then she'll always get revenge on you. Most people started hating her in BFDI 11, but I think she was justified in that. But that's a topic for another day. Anyways, that is the end of the video. That is my opinion on every BFDI character from worst to best. Thank you for watching, and if you would like to see more videos like this, then get this video to 7 likes. Goodbye.